Hi folks, and welcome to Make Food with Fifi. I'm Fifi, the very proud owner of Serendipity, a multi-award winning cafe and gift shop in Fife in Scotland. And on this channel I show you some of our favourite recipes at the tea room. People love asking about what we make, how we make it, and if they can learn to make it themselves. And anyone can learn to bake and cook, and I like to put together some simple recipes from the tea room that everyone can follow. Now, one of the most popular things we sell is our scones. We did win Best Scones in Scotland 2021, and we're just inundated. No matter how many scones I bake, it just seems to never be enough. And at the moment, this recipe is one of our most popular. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make our festive Christmas scones. Now, it's a take on our classic sultana scone recipe, which you can also find on this channel a few videos back. Whereas this version is just slightly adapted to make a more festive, warm, Christmassy scone. This is perfect to be served for Christmas afternoon tea, for maybe Christmas Eve, maybe Christmas morning with some hot butter. Perfect just to set you up in the Christmas mood, or for any occasion running up to the big day to share with friends. Now, as always, first things first, we need to preheat our oven. Now, I have an electric oven, so I am using 180 degrees centigrade. That's 350 Fahrenheit or gas mark 4, whichever you use. Pop it on before you begin, just to make sure it's up to temperature before your scones go in. Now, we need a few simple ingredients for our scones, and we need no equipment whatsoever except for our oven. This is all a handmade recipe. You can use a food processor to kind of process your butter through your flour, but I really recommend you don't. Doing this by hand definitely gets the best results. So what we have here is 400 grams of self-raising flour. We have some baking powder. We have some salted butter, 85 grams of salted butter. We have 85 grams of sugar. Now, I've got a mixture in there, half and half caster sugar and half light brown sugar for this recipe. We've got 85 grams of cranberries as an alternative to our sultanas today. We've got some cinnamon, we've got orange, and we have got 1 egg. We've got 200 ml of whole milk. So as a top tip, I always recommend using full fat milk and full fat salted butter. Don't ever try to substitute it with low fat milk or with margarine. It just does not get the best results. If you're going for a dairy free scone, you can use oat milk. It's probably the best alternative, but really, if you can, stick to the good stuff. It definitely makes for a better scone. And you've got some icing sugar at the end just for decoration. In terms of equipment, as I say, you need nothing electrical, you just need a little bit of hard work. But you do need some scone cutters. You can choose different sizes depending on what type of scone size you want to come out with. A teaspoon, a butter knife, a little silicone brush for washing your scones on top, and a grater for zesting your orange. We need a lined baking tray for putting our scones on to go into the oven, but that is it. Other than that, it's a very simple, easy recipe that requires very little other than a little bit of effort. So, we have our 400 grams of self-raising flour in our bowl, and we're just going to roll up the sleeves of our Christmas jumper, and we're going to put in 2 good heaped teaspoons of baking powder. And you want to just allow that through your fingers just to make sure it's thoroughly mixed in to the flour. And making sure there's no pockets of little hard pieces of baking powder, because that will make your scones rise at an unusual pace. So once that's through, we're going to add in our 85 grams of salted butter. The butter needs to be chilled straight from the fridge. If the butter starts to warm up, it will get warm in your hands as you're kneading it through, but if it starts to warm up, it'll stop the scones from rising properly. So try to do this as quick as possible. Now, I say that, but this is the only slow part of the recipe. You want to run the butter through your fingers and through the flour and baking powder until it resembles fine breadcrumbs. Now, as I say, some people do use a food processor for this, and when you're making hundreds of scones like I do every day, it does seem like a good idea, but I assure you it just doesn't get the best results. This is definitely the better way to go to do it by hand. And this batch will yield you about half a dozen big size scones, or if you're using a medium cutter, maybe 8 or 9. So it's not a huge amount to have to work through with your hands. So I would definitely recommend just doing this by feel, and that way you're making sure you're getting rid of all of the big lumps of butter. You want it to be really evenly distributed and finely rubbed through into little breadcrumbs. The colder your butter, the slower that process is going to be, but it will take you a few minutes to get it done, but trust me, it's worth it. It's the only slow step in the recipe. So next we're going to add in our dry ingredients. So we're going to add in our 85 grams of mixed sugar. So roughly half light brown sugar and roughly half castor sugar. You can of course just use castor sugar or light brown sugar if you want, but I actually think the mix works really well for this recipe. The brown sugar just gives it a little bit more of a Christmassy feel, but the castor sugar keeps it light and doesn't weigh the scones down. So again, just run that through with your hands until it's all mixed in. Now we're going to add in our dried cranberries. You can use sultanas here, but cranberries definitely gives it more of a festive finish. With the combination of cranberry, orange and cinnamon, it's got everything that makes up Christmas. It's got that warm smell from the cinnamon, it's got the pop of the cranberries, and it's got the zest of the orange. So it certainly makes a proper Christmas festive scone. So just mix those through. Then we're going to add in 2 teaspoons of our cinnamon. That may sound like a lot, but trust me, just give it 2 good teaspoons and a good swirl around. I absolutely love cinnamon. I don't think you can ever have too much, but you can certainly just add 1. But trust me, just add 2. I'm going to set that to the side just for a minute, and we're going to take our large orange and we're going to grate it on the finer part. And already I can smell that lovely Christmassy smell coming through from the fresh orange. I've grated up the whole orange, the zest and the pith. The pith is the white part between the skin and the flesh. Take all of that in. And then we're going to keep a little bit to the side for decoration afterwards. Just keep a little bundle of that orange and put it away to one side for now, and then otherwise tip the rest into the mixture. And again, a rough mix around with your hands just to fill it in, but without overly mixing, because you don't want your warm hands to start melting the butter. Now we're going to make a little well in the centre, and we're going to pour in our whole milk, 200 mils. And we're going to take that butter knife and we're going to start to fold it in together. We're going to start to mix the milk into the flour, keeping it off the sides as we go around until it starts to form a dough. Then we're going to tip our bowl up onto its side. We're going to use our hand to take it off the front and off the sides and off the bottom. Just turn it around in your hands a few times just to make sure the wet mixture is picking up all the dry from the bottom of the bowl. And when you think you've got all of it, you can tip it out onto the table. We're going to start to knead out our dough. Now this may feel a little bit wet and a little bit sticky because of the orange zest. You're obviously adding an extra bit of moisture in with that. So what to do is just get a little bit of flour and sprinkle onto your tabletop and roll your dough into the flour, gathering in any stray little bits that are escaping away. Now you don't want to over knead scones. Only do this really until you've got a nice firm dough that's not too wet and not too dry. It'll be too dry, you'll know it's too dry because there'll be piles of flour and bits scattered all around that don't seem to want to stick into the dough. And if it's too wet, then it's going to stick to your table. Now we're going to pat our dough down onto the table, keeping it about a couple of inches thick to give it a nice rise. Now our self-raising flour combined with our baking powder will obviously help the scones rise, but you still want to keep it quite thick because it is a heavy mix. Now, as I say, you can use any size cutter. This is for a large scone like we do at the tea room. This is a little afternoon tea size. I'm going to use a medium size cutter today because that way, if I eat 2 scones, it doesn't feel that bad. I feel like I'm only eating 2 medium sized ones instead of one great big one. So we're going to cut our scones through and just rub them in a little bit of that flour on the bottom and onto your lined baking tray. Now, this should just slide out of the cutter nicely, and after you cut out 2 or 3, roll it back together again just to get your thickness back and enough to start cutting out of it again. That has given us 9 medium sized scones. So all we have to do now is wash them in our egg. Just crack it into the dish that you had your milk in and beat it around with your brush. And just lightly wash the top of the scones. No scientific method for this. Just as long as the tops are all covered to stop them burning, and it gives them a nice glazed finish. Now we're just going to take our cinnamon and we're just going to give them a little sprinkling. And these are ready for the oven. Pop them into your preheated oven for about 12 to 15 minutes until they're risen and golden brown on top. Once you pick them up, they should be smooth and lightly golden on the bottom. So we're going to pop these in and we'll see what they're like when they come out. Now folks, that is our scones out of the oven, risen perfectly and cooked to perfection. Now we're going to just stack them up on a board here just for presentation. Now, with that orange you had left over, just give them a little sprinkling of orange. A few cranberries around them, just to decorate the board. Just like that. And the final flourish, a dusting of icing sugar. And there folks, you have it, the perfect Christmas scones. Cranberry, cinnamon and orange. It smells like Christmas. Everything about that coming out the oven smells festive. Everything you would want from a Christmas scone and a Christmas treat. So I'm going to be very Christmassy and very neighbourly, and I'm going to box some up into some lovely lined boxes that I made with Christmas paper, and I'm going to drop some of these to my neighbours. However, I am going to keep back 2 for myself and eat 1 right now because they smell amazing. If you've enjoyed this recipe and would like to ask any questions, please feel free to ask. I will pin the ingredients for the recipe at the top comment in the comment section. And if you've enjoyed this recipe, please consider subscribing to the channel and give me any feedback you would like to do so. And any questions, please feel free to ask. I've been Fifi, and thank you so much for following my Christmas scones recipe.